All right, guys, so we're not working on the houseboat today, but I think some people might learn something on this one, so check it out. A little different one today. My uncle's old bass boat wouldn't start. He asked if I could look at it. I don't know anything about outboard engines, but we're gonna try to work on it anyway. And it is bass boat flaked out from the 80s, just like you would expect. And it's a winner or a legend, depending on which label you're looking at. I think Legend is the actual brand of boat, if I remember right. It's got a Johnson 175 horsepower 2-stroke. It's a V6, so that's a pretty big 2-stroke engine, and it won't start, won't even turn over. He said he changed the starter, he changed the starter solenoid, changed the key cylinder, so we'll check that out, but does nothing. Turn the key, nothing happens. Not a thing. Turn the key and you hear that buzzer beep. Get down in here. So the buzzer does beep, just for a second. Take the cowling off of this thing so we can get a look at the power of the old 1989 Johnson V6. Starter does look new. He did say he replaced it, so that looks new. Starter solenoid looks pretty new. He also said batteries should be good. I've had it on the charger overnight. It's Trojan brand. Those are pretty good. They put those in golf carts, boats. And then he's got separate deep cycle batteries for the trolling motors. So this should just be for starting the boat and then, you know, lights, accessories, little stereo, things like that. Okay, so electrical problems mean multimeter time. So all you need to troubleshoot, cheapo multimeter. I think this is a $40 one off Amazon, but where are they at? Seriously, even one from Walmart, yeah, one of these. I think these are like $8 at Walmart. That'll work just fine too. Okay, multimeter time. Let's test the battery first. Yeah, 13.3 volts. So that's pretty good. Charger's been on all night. So we know battery's got good voltage. Step one, check. Here's the negative post. And this happens all the time. See all these red, yellow wires coming out of here? These are actually grounds, but people a lot of times just have one color wire. They just have red. So you'll do red for the hot, red for the ground. So that does make troubleshooting fun. Trim doesn't work. No trim, no choke. So when you push the key inwards, I don't know if y'all can see that, that triggers a primer or a choke on these outboard engines. He does have the kill switch on. You hook this up to your life vest, so when you're doing 70 miles an hour in a 16-foot bass boat for no reason, you go flying out of the water, that kills the engine. But that shouldn't keep it from turning over. And then there's always the neutral safety switch. It is in neutral. Nothing. So we'll have to check that too. So next thing is to take this thing apart. Okay, I got the screws out of this thing. Ta-da! So he said he replaced the key cylinder. It does look clean. That's what we're looking for on the neutral safety switch. So this is the first thing we'll probably test. This little guy right there. Yeah, so if you can see, when this thing goes into neutral, pushes that plunger in, and that lets the engine start. Couple pro tips when you're working on electrical issues in a boat. You always need a good ground. Now the problem with working in a boat, it's all usually fiberglass, plastic. It's not like a car where you can clamp on, find a ground just about anywhere. So easiest thing to do usually is have a long wire, go back to the battery, to the ground, hook it up there so you know you've got a good ground. 13.1 volts on one of the terminals off this key cylinder. Next I want to check this neutral safety switch. Switch this to read ohms. We'll put it on the little buzzer setting. Always test these things out. All right, so I'm touching them together. You get a nice beep. All right, so you know your leads are good. Always test those out first. I'm gonna pierce both sides of this neutral safety switch. All right, so there's one side. Let's get the other. Yep, I'm getting a beep right away. So it seems like that switch is good. I'll go ahead and move the shifter. We'll see if it stops beeping. We got a beep in neutral. No beep. So switch is good. Pretty quick test of that. So we know our neutral safety switch is good. We're getting 12 volts to the key. Next thing, start turning the key and see if we get voltage going down the starter wire. I think it's time to get the wiring diagram out. figure out which is which on these things. Okay, when in doubt, get the computer out. Go try and find a wiring diagram for this thing. So here's a guy doing the Lord's work out here. He's got a whole website written up about these old OMC controls. He's got the wire color codes, what they do, and he's got a nice wiring diagram of these kind of standard key switches. Here's one thing I wonder. Since everyone's on TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, whatever now, no one makes websites with this kind of info. Who's gonna do this going forward? Man, this is a weird one. So I've got 12 volts to the key, to the main feed for this key cylinder. But whenever I turn the key, voltage goes away. So hook it back up. 12 volts, turn the key. 0 volts, 12 volts, turn the key. Nothing. So we've got 12 volts to the main feed for this key. Big red wire. It's at the back. It's kind of hard to see. Whenever I turn the key, voltage goes away. That's the main feed. There's no reason 12 volts should go away from the main feed to this key cylinder just from me turning the key. I don't know. Keep looking. Found another wiring diagram of the engine side, and they're showing the main battery feed to the starter solenoid. That's normal. And then we've got a wire coming off with a fuse that is in line with the key switch down here. So I need to hunt for that fuse, wherever that's at. You never know, we might get lucky. It's just a simple blown fuse. Probably not that lucky, but you never know. Took me a minute, but I found the fuse on this thing. This little red connector right here. It's like that, little waterproof connector. And there's a fuse in it, a little glass fuse. So I pulled it out and it doesn't look blown. That is a tiny little fuse. It doesn't look blown. You can see the middle section of the fuse. It's not burnt away. We'll test it on the multimeter though, see what it's doing. Test the fuse resistance here. 7,500 ohms resistance through this fuse. What? I don't know how that's possible. You know, normally the fuse is blown, so there's no connection, or it's good, so there's 0 point something ohms. 7,000 ohms makes it seem like there's a resistor in there, like it's partially blown. Now I'm getting 17,000 ohms. 20, what the hell is wrong with this fuse? Okay, I have an idea. There's nothing wrong with bypassing the fuse. All you gotta do, find you some wire, let's stab it in one end, stab it in the other end, bypass the fuse, see what happens. Stab wire in this side, got a little alligator clip on this end, make it a little easier. Oh, I just heard a beep. Just heard a beep up at the front of the boat. Key test now. Oh. Yeah, it's in neutral. It's turning over. Is that seriously all it was? Got a way that I think I want to fix this boat. I'm gonna run down to the parts store, grab some things. I'll show you what the idea is. The old glow fuse. So a lot of people still haven't seen these things, and I think they're awesome. We use them in the race car, okay? I used them in the yellow boat, and they're going everywhere in the houseboat. When the fuse blows, they light up, so you can tell instantly if the fuse is blown. It's the best thing ever. Okay, I think we've got this thing fixed. Let me show you what we've got here. Cut the old glass fuse out, put the new fuse holder in. I've got a glow blow fuse in here, 25 amp. I'm gonna try and blow it so we can make sure that it's working correctly. So I'm gonna use a little needle here, stab that in to the fuse, and then I'm gonna hook up a wire. We'll ground it out. Got it hooked up. Hook my little clamp up, find the ground right here. Okay, it blew, glowing red, so that's how you know it's bad. The nice thing about them, doesn't matter the direction either. Okay, so in that way, you can see it's blown. Take it out, flip it over. Same thing. And good thing about these, the cap is on. You can still tell it's blown. So it's perfect. All right, fire in the hole. I really can't believe that that's all that was wrong with this boat. So let me show you guys exactly what happened here. All right, so we've got the battery giving 12 volts through this fuse over to the ignition switch, and there's a buzzer that beeps when you put the key in. And then of course, when you turn the key, it sends 12 volts off to the starter. Now, when this fuse normally burns up, the metal in the middle burns away, and since this is a glass fuse, you can tell that the fuse is blown. What happened to this fuse is over the winter, moisture got in through the seal between the glass and the metal, and it corroded away the bottom part of this fuse on the inside. And so now instead of metal right here at the bottom, it gets replaced by this oxide layer that has a high resistance, but it can still pass voltage through it. So you've still got 12 volts going through the fuse to the ignition switch, and it's enough to make this buzzer beep when you put the key in. But when you try to turn the key and start the boat, there's way too much resistance through this fuse. Voltage goes to 0 right here, and there you go. So I just gave my uncle the good news that his boat's running, and he's pretty happy because he's been trying to figure this out for a few weeks now. So anyway, maybe you learned something on this one, maybe you didn't. Either way, we appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you on the next one.